Greetings, Illuminati. We are here with another question and answer session. And this question that I'm going to answer for you today is, let's talk about inspection mode. Not photographing the coin for the photorealistic, like what it looks like to the eye, but I'm looking at a coin and I want to see something really specific, like an error or a weird mint mark or something like that. We're going to be dealing just with my phone as the primary camera, but keep in mind, if you are in a controlled lighting environment, like a room that you can turn the lights off in, it doesn't have to be black, but just dimmer, so there's no direct light on it. You can totally use this with a coin microscope. You can also use it with your big camera on a camera stand, and you can use a macro, so you can get way closer to it. I'm going to use the macro on my phone to show you some different things, but keep in mind that it's not just a phone-only situation. And I don't actually have any error coins. I don't have that kind of money, but I've got some examples that I can show you that aren't present, and then I'll kind of show you the idea of how it works in this live demo, but it won't be like a true inspection of seeing a mint mark or something that you can't see with the naked eye. But I'm going to show you this one real quick, which at the Raleigh Coin Show, we had a collector that brought by his little hobby was ancient error coins. So apparently when a new ruler came into power, it was cheaper just to restamp the currency than it was to melt it down and to reweigh it and to stamp new coins. And so you had a lot of like double impression coins where there were two images, sometimes even three, that were just sort of stamped into the coin. So they kept the metal weight, and all they had to do was heat up the nuggets or heat up the coins in order to do that. So there's a whole genre of ancient error coins. They also had problems like broken dies and stuff like that, but the quality control, I imagine, was not as strict, because what they were really trying to do is say, this is a certain amount of gold and we approve that. But still cool. I just wanted to show you this coin that I'll bring up magically in editing. This first image is the shot that we took of one of the coins to show what it actually looked like. So that has the right amount of shine to it and the right patina. It's a mixture of the axial light with a little bit of the tone light, I think. But he didn't even know that it was an error coin until we switched lighting and just used the halo in what we'll call inspection mode. And then suddenly this crack shows, and so you can see a crack that goes through the coin that was in the die. So that was kind of cool. Like, we actually discovered that together. I was like, did you see that? And he was like, oh, I didn't even know that had an error in it. But sure enough, it has that really deep crack that kind of goes through the pattern. So that's sort of an example of what the light can do. Another example is in a video I just posted. It was a tone coin collector. He was referring to it as a scar face. So it is a crack in the die that goes over the face of the coin, and I'll put that up for you so you can see that. But that's a tone coin that has an error in it that's cracked. So you know, this is what it looks like to the eye, and this is what that crack actually looks like. And it's a good way of breaking that out and saying, here's the crack, really super apparent in this sort of high contrast situation. So let's start with this, my favorite little demo coin. I bought this coin from a dealer, and I said, give me the absolute worst coin that you have. He had a few tone coins, and he gave me this artificially toned dark coin in a slab. And that has been one of the coins that I've used to kind of calibrate, like, is this a good solution? Can I get the actual color of this coin out using the controls in the Halumin-C? And that's how I designed it, basically, with this coin. But it's also a great light to show the inspection feature on the Halumin-C, because Toning does not show up very well with the open cylindrical halo. This light is designed to create relief and to show the relief, unless you're shooting an ancient coin and you can tilt it at an angle. It does really well with that. But for modern coins that are much more precise and have very minuscule kind of relief in them, it provides an amazing tool. I'm going to do it with the lid on first, and then I'll show you some examples of what you might be able to do with the lid off using the macro on your phone. All right, so the first thing that we always do is we bring up sliders 3 and 4 to about 50%. That is our focus light, and that is what allows us to dial in. See, it was in macro. That's actually a good thing to keep in mind, is if your phone just won't focus for some reason and there is a flower up in that corner, that flower is your phone trying to do a macro shot, and you want to turn that off, because what it's really seeing is it's seeing the axial light. It's not seeing what you want it to be looking at. All right. So this is the halo at 50% and level. And you can see that does not look like the coin. It's a really unusual, like, high contrast thing. It almost looks fake because all you see is that white outline around it. But keep in mind, this is a dark coin. So when you're looking at it, it's really hard to see any of that. So if I was trying to read the writing on it, particularly like the date or the mint mark or something like that, that coin would be a challenge in just about any light, because it's so dark and it's murky. It's almost like a camouflage pattern on it that keeps you from being able to see what's really on the surface of that coin. Using this, though, if there is any relief to it, it glows in that white outline, and that makes it super easy to see what's going on. So when I rock that halo back and forth, we can kind of pick up different elements of that depending on the angle that it's at. So that is, in a nutshell, what inspection mode kind of is the ability to really dial in that relief. So turning off one half of the halo and relying on just half of it, that will create even more shadow, and more, it'll accentuate it even further. So that's in a slab, and that is a coin that doesn't have a lot of relief. If I wanted to actually photograph it, I could just bring up the tone light and suddenly, pow, got a real coin in there. But I don't want those distractions. I want to look for things on the coin. So you can see in those earlier examples where on the scar face or on the ancient coin, that crevice really shows up. So I'm going to do an unslabbed ancient coin. This was another coin that I used to kind of calibrate the device. And it looks like, in real life, it just looks like a blob of dark metal. I'm assuming it's like bronze or something. I don't actually know what metal it is, but it's dark and it's very indistinct. It's very hard to see what's on the surface of that. So I'm going to switch these out, and then I'll do some stuff with the lid off. We'll put the coin pedestal on here that is made for the smaller unslabbed items, so that you don't have a lot of excess material surrounding it. And so this is interesting because it's really hard to tell what's going on the face of that coin. But when I go back to that initial focus mode, we have something to work with. So I turned half of that halo off, and now I've just got the other half of it on. And depending on how low I go with that, you can see the face and the writing really start to show up. I'm gonna reset the light on that just because I think it was not fully focused on the coin. So there we go. So see how I'm just tilting that halo. I'll keep this lid on, so if you're able to see, I guess you can't really see that, but let me sit down. If I sit down, maybe, oh, all right, stand up. So you'll just have to look through the camera's point of view, but that halo is basically really low. I think it's actually like a slightly lower than the coin, and only one half of it is on, so the half that faces the face is on. So by slightly rotating that, I can really just dial in and find that angle where it just grazes over the top of that. And that creates a really hard shadow. You start to see the surface texture of the metal as well as the writing and the face on there, and it becomes real clear. If I bring up the other side just a little bit, that will give me the definition to show the actual shape of the coin. Makes it easier to cut out as well. But you can see again, that is not, that texture that it has looks kind of weird. It doesn't actually look like that with the naked eye. Whereas, bring up that tone light, see how there's a little shine to it? So that's just worn with time. And now you see a more accurate portrayal. If I do, so see how the tone light kind of, there's a little bit of gleam on there. There's some pitting, and there's just a little bit of detail that can be gained from that. If I bring up the axial light by itself, I'll go through all of those. So that is just the axial light. That is just the tone light. And that is just the halo. Now that green yellow color, a part of that is because of the angle that it's coming in on. So the angle is slightly changing the color that's reflecting from it. And the other part of it is this is a prototype, and the materials that I was working with are imperfect. So that shifts it a little bit more yellow. In the production prototype, we plan on getting the color temperatures a lot closer. And even in the prototypes that I sold as the Can't Wait edition, we've got different materials, but this was a very early prototype, and we were working with certain materials. So keep that in mind, that color shift is something we are aware of, and we're trying to design that out. So yeah, I mean, I like that with a little bit of that tone light in there, just to give it a more accurate kind of gleam. I think without it, it's a little too dark, but I think that actually looks like the coin as well. So let's talk about working with it with the lid off. And to do that, I'm gonna have to turn off this studio light because it's a little bit bright. It's a little bit darker in here, but this is by no means a dark room. There's that blue light that's on, but there is sunlight coming in through these windows all the way around. Just my camera settings were set for a brighter situation where I had direct light on it. So it's like a little campfire chat that we're doing right now. We can still see the lights on the Halumin though. And we're gonna talk about inspection mode with the lid off, which is kind of fun actually, because again, if your coin microscope was over the halo here, I'll turn that on so we can see what we're doing. Coin microscope set in here, or in this case, we're gonna be using the macro setting on my phone. There, so what I did, that little flower that I told you not to, oops. The flower that I told you to turn off, for this you want to turn it back on, because what it's going to enable you to do is get in real close. Get real cozy with your coin. And now you can really start to see some stuff. So what I'm doing basically is just holding the phone directly over and using the halo. See, when I get low, we start to see some stuff. So something like that. Can bring up that light more. Turn off the other side. I hope this is riveting for you. So, and this is also good for shooting corners, shooting details that are not the straight down ones. So if I wanted to get that edge there, or I wanted to get really in there, it's actually amazing how good the phones are with macro. It's a really handy thing. In a lot of ways, it works better than a macro lens. It doesn't have the resolution, but you can kind of see. This might even be a copper coin. You can kind of see where it worn away. It looks like there's some copper coloring under there. You wouldn't be able to tell from looking at it directly, but that's super cool. All right, I'm gonna put the our favorite toned coin in there. And we're gonna do the same thing. There we go. All right, so let's say there was something about the date that we wanted to see. Get it roughly where it needs to be, press and hold, darken it down. There you go. How about something with the Liberty? So when it's in macro mode, by the way, it will jump to two different lenses depending on how close it thinks you are, because it's trying to get something in focus. So keep that in mind. If it jumps to a lens and you can't get it to look good, just pull the camera away and it should correct. But I'm just moving the halo at a slightly different angle, and now we're getting that toning to show because it's coming in through that grazing backlight, but we're still getting those details as well. And the turntable works really well for this, by the way. So there is a turntable built in, and I've done videos before. So what I do is I align the coin so that it is more in the center of the pivot point there. And then you can do decent videos of just going around and showing different elements of the coin. I actually think that's kind of cool video content. So maybe you don't, I don't know. We're all different. All right, but that's the gist of it. So I hope that gave you some insight in how you can use it. Again, coin microscope, drop that baby in here with the lights dim in your room. Copy stand, camera with a macro, or without the copy stand, and you want to do what we just did where you're putting it at different angles. Don't be afraid to use that halo at different angles, and then bring in your camera and get what you need. But it definitely gives you some options. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your journey with the Halumin-C. If you have any additional questions, just leave them in the comments. I will either answer you with a comment, or if it's a big question, I will try to make a video for you. And we'll talk again soon.